I think the room has ended, but I can't tell. Oh goodness, what have I created? I can't tell what I'm supposed to be doing. Hello everyone, and welcome to some Magicraft. We're going to be running with the original build today, just so I can upgrade the Magic Bullet immediately. It'll give a damage bonus to any other spells that we use. I've got all the skills here fully unlocked, so I'll have everything to work with now, and then I have everything maxed out here as well. And kind of the theme for today's run, we're going to be going on Nightmare 1, by the way, and then I'm going to try to basically create the sun, is what's going to be the theme. There will be a couple ways we can end up doing it, and we'll just see where the build goes from there. For now, I need to set up my bands, so I will see you guys after that. Okay, now that the bands are done, the main thing I've set up is limiting a lot of the rares. That way I can try to reroll into Twine and Fierce Dragon Breath. Fierce Dragon Breath is going to be the main attacking tool, and then there's going to be a couple different ways I can set it up. Maybe with Twine, maybe with something like Orbit. We'll just have to see where the direction of the build goes. And then most of the things I've blocked out here are mostly just summon-related stuff, since we won't be using any of those. And then a couple of projectiles I don't necessarily want. If I had more money, I would block out more of these projectiles, but I would rather save the money on it for now. So now that that's out of the way, what I like to do for these videos is skip to the first and second boss fight. I don't feel like anything too interesting happens in the first areas, so I'd rather just cut down on video time. So I will see you guys at the first boss. Alright, we are right outside of the first boss fight, and I'll do a quick explanation of how my wands are set up. I've got damage here, and then just something really silly here. It's Magic Bullet, Duet, and another Magic Bullet. So when this Magic Bullet fires off, Duet makes it where it fires another Magic Bullet after that, and it also gets a damage increase based on the damage of this bullet. It's just something real silly and goofy for the early game. And then on this wand, I've got it set up where just over time, it'll gain charges and then automatically fire off floating wisps that orbit me. And then I can kind of just walk into the boss when I'm ready and do a lot of damage that way. And then this wand just has some hammers on it for now, for the extra movement speed and for a little bit of extra damage. The extra movement speed is going to be really nice from the rune hammers if we start getting into a different one of the boundary stones. So I want to hang on to them and pick up them as early as I see them. And that's the first boss down. Easy enough. Most of that was probably the wisp and maybe hammer damage. Ooh, perfect. We got a movement wand. So that will work perfectly with this wand here that I had already set up. So I talked about it in the previous video, but the way that secondary slots work is that they have some kind of condition. So, for example, this wand itself had a condition for every certain amount of distance moved. It will create mana, basically. And then once it gets to the mana cost of the spell itself, the spell will fire off automatically. It doesn't cost any of the actual wand's mana. Something you can do with these boundary stones that you can unlock is create those conditions on your own, so you don't have to find a specific wand for it anymore. And then these conditions can also stack. So you can see on the wand right now that it can gain MP from both conditions at the same time. You can stack as many of those conditions together as you want to. And now that that explanation is out of the way, I'll go ahead and skip forward to the second boss, so I'll see you guys there. Okay, we're outside of the second boss room now, and as you can see, things have gotten really crazy compared to last time you saw the build. First wand is set up with a twine setup. This is one of the things I really wanted to get for this run. What it does is cast the right spell 3 times when casting the left spell, and causes it to circle around the left spell. So the left spell being Magic Bullet, and the right spell being Fierce Dragon Breath. So now every time I shoot my wand, I basically fire the sun, and it constantly damages enemies. It looks so awesome, I love this setup. And then for my second wand, it's still got the auto-cast thing with time, it's got a range boost, a duration boost, a core of flame, so now these do damage over time, and then it's got black holes which orbit around me. So not only do I basically have the sun following me, but I also can basically shoot out suns. I really love this entire build setup. You can go either or with either the orbiting stuff or like the projectile version, or if you get it set up good enough, you can do both at the same time. And I am just going to melt through this boss, most likely. One thing, there's a couple really big issues with the projectile version of the build, and that's if the boss moves, you're just pretty much screwed. I don't know if tracking would help with that or not. I think the problem even with tracking is that once the actual projectile itself hits something, then it just stops moving entirely. The tracking only works for, like, the projectile itself. Oh, I thought the boss was dead. Maybe I should just not open my inventory in the middle of a boss fight and try to start looking at things, but who cares? It's early enough on in the run that nothing is really too deadly at this point anyways. So we can go ahead and swap out this wand. For the rest of my wands, I'm mostly just looking for things that have extra, or that have a lot of storage space on them. There's a couple things we can use bonus wands for. So I believe if, like I said, if I put tracking on here, it does make it where it's tracking for now, but once that extra, once the projectile itself expires, it stops tracking, because it just puts the dragon breath with the twine, like, on the ground, basically. So that's the biggest issue of the build that I would need to solve if I wanted to make it, like, a really high-tier build. Okay, so I think we're done reforging and swapping around wand stuff now. I moved a lot of the duration over to the, basically, sun projectile wand, because Fierce Dragon Breath scales off of duration in damage. And then hover will make it last even after the original duration ends. So one thing, if you do want to make this build a lot stronger, is you can put fall on it. And I feel like that kind of solves one of the issues of it just being easy to miss the spell. I don't think it's quite, like, it's not really on theme for what I want to do, though. That's more of, like, raining fire than creating the sun, so. We also did put range boost on it, which increases the range a lot, too, so that might help as well. The one thing also that's an issue right now is that the mana cost is really high, which we can solve for if we get the right things for it. So even with the range increase, it does kind of help, but it also introduces another problem where there's now, like, honestly, it was a problem before too, but it's the range of the dead zone in the middle has kind of expanded, I feel like. Maybe not. It's kind of hard to tell, honestly. Also, I cannot see where the pickup is for the, move to the next room. So I think if we really want to solve the problem of making it hit more consistently, I need to use something like... why don't I just do this, actually? This would be much smarter. I fire out the black hole, and then the black hole will constantly move, which will also constantly move the twine as well, or at least it should. Now the tracking actually does something and matters. It also looks cooler too, and it kind of gets rid of the dead zone problem a little bit, even though the black hole itself isn't going to be doing a lot of damage. It's mostly going to be the sun, that is. Alright, so from that from that shop we picked up a free wand, which just gave us some more slots. We also found area boost, which is a very, very useful passive to pick up. It lets you make wands into basically support wands that affect all of your other wands. So even though the time duration is here, it's a permanent fixture of every other wand. It's like I said, it's just a really cool way to free up space on some of your main wands or your main wand, because in a lot of cases you will just end up stacking everything on one wand, and it kind of seems to be the way to go when playing, at least on the high difficulty stuff. One thing that is an issue for this build in particular, though, is that I'll have to show the menu again. And wow, we are getting so many Prospector's gloves. I will take it. I just walked directly into a hole. It is hard for me to see where I'm going with all this stuff going on screen. I know this stuff isn't actually, like, blocking my view in that case, but just the fact that stuff is spinning around so constantly is very distracting to me. Oh yeah, so mana cost is very much an issue right now. Even though these spells do last a long time, I still kind of either need to scale up their damage somehow or make it where I can throw more of them out. Which has been a lot of the issue of what I have been running into when trying to do Nightmare 3 runs. It's like, I'll get a build setup that feels pretty interesting, but then the damage scaling just isn't up there where I need it to be by the end of the run. That's kind of caused me a lot of frustration. I think I mentioned it at the beginning a little bit before I had time to really talk about it, but I didn't upload for a couple weeks because I was kind of in a bad mindset when it came to uploading this game. I was stuck trying to make sure I was building really powerful builds that could clear Nightmare 3, which is the hardest difficulty as far as I know. So I was just getting kind of stuck in a loop where I wasn't really ever uploading because I never felt like the builds I was making was quite strong enough. But really there's so much more to the game than just making really high DPS builds. You can make fun builds without them dealing enough damage to win the highest difficulty. Thank goodness there's text here, because I could not see what the room layouts were. What do I want to throw down here? By the way, this is something that you unlock through one of the meta progression systems, and then if you throw down an extra item here, it will take your spell, but it'll give you a unique one. What is this one? I don't think I have seen this yet. I don't quite understand how this is working. Also, mouse tracking is a little bit weird in general for me, because I play on controller. It considers mouse tracking, kind of... In some ways you can You can change it by where you're pointing the right stick at, and then if you're not touching the right stick, it just spawns or it just pretty much auto-targets whatever enemy is, I think, closest to you is how it works. But I don't quite have a full understanding of how the auto-targeting stuff works. But yeah, kind of back to what I was talking about before with the whole, like, nightmare thing and top DPS builds is I just tried to rush into it way too early. It's something I might do later on as I get more familiar with the game, but there's really no reason to rush it or ever, like, do it in general. Aside from just... I feel like it's more of a thing where, like, you've just gotten to the point of where you know how to break the game so badly that you kind of need to start doing the higher difficulties in order to have anything stand a chance. But there's not really... From what I could tell, there's not really too many big differences between the difficulty settings in terms of stuff like the enemy is getting, like, higher or harder attack patterns or anything like that. So the main thing is you'll just usually hit a point where your DPS ends up feeling really low. Or at least that's been my case so far with the Nightmare 3 stuff. The first areas of the run aren't really that difficult in terms of, like, enemy HP and stuff like that. But the final boss of the second to last area, or even both of the bosses of the second to last area, get pretty tanky if you don't have, like, a really strong build setup. And then where things really hit the fan are in the final area. Enemies get so much more HP in there compared to every other area before that, which I think is perfectly fine. With how broken of builds you can end up making in this game, it's good to have a final area that is just ridiculously strong, so you actually have a purpose for testing out your really broken builds. But anyways, to kind of finish up what I was talking about before, not every build in the game needs to be strong enough to clear the hardest difficulty, and the game's not really about that type of thing. Or it is, but it also... There's two sides of things. I can definitely see the fun in trying to min-max the damage on every build, especially as you've played the game a lot and kind of understand that more just naturally. But there's also the side of the game where you just put together silly builds and watch them work. DPS doesn't have to be something that's that important. This one is giving MP consumption, so I want to keep it ideally. But I'm trying to think of if... I think this wand should have more space. Or I could use it for this wand, actually. It has no MP regen, but that doesn't matter at all because we're using secondary slots here. Though honestly, I don't think the secondary stuff is doing very much. But hey, at least it looks cool. Actually, it's doing almost the same amount of damage. Really? That really surprises me. Huh. I did not expect it to almost match the damage. Oh, thank goodness we got a forge room. I can finally clean up some of the inventory. I will finally merge the rune hammers. I didn't merge them before because having them separated gives more value in terms of just raw stats. But merging them obviously saves space. Okay, we are back and things are way different now. I moved the black hole setup over to my automatic wand because of the mana cost issues were making it so I wasn't able to really upkeep this enough compared to with this build. And then we got the duration plus here to save up some space. We put some crit on it. Now it has a 20% crit rate, and then it's got the range boost. It's also got magic energy conversion, which makes the secondary slots restore. Actually, this is a worthless setup now that I look at it. I got to redo things again, so I will see you guys back soon. Okay, we are back, and my computer is not too happy about what's going on right now. So we've gotten the black hole sun set up. Did the game just crash on me, actually? No, it tabbed me for some reason. I don't know why, but it tabbed me. Anyways, we've gotten the black hole setup moved over to the autocast wand. The reason why we had to switch which wand it was on is because of magic energy conversion device. The secondary slot charging increases by 2% for every mana restoration, and then this is also ramping up the MP regen. So now this has 36 regen, which is all being converted into secondary charge rate. So now it's charging at 64 per second. This one has no mana regen at all, so trying to run this setup on that one was just a bad idea. And I'm glad I caught it before I went into the next area, though. So now we'll be mostly reliant on the auto-casted suns, but we will be able to cast a couple of our own occasionally as well. It doesn't really feel like I'm doing a whole lot of damage, surprisingly. I guess part of the issue was some of the enemies were intangible, since I wasn't close enough to them. Now the question is, do I want crit rate or crit damage? I think I want crit damage, because they'll be critting pretty often, even at fairly low crit rate, just because of how many times it's hitting. Another issue I'm running into is that I can no longer see my character at all. I can obviously turn down the spell transparency, and that would help, but that looks less cool. But we're probably going to have to get to that point pretty soon, if not now. Wow. I guess it's accurate to the sun, which is what I wanted it to be. If you stare at it, you probably won't be able to see anything. I love the fact that being able to, like, actually see the game, being able to control your character, and not crashing the game are, like, legitimate things that you have to think about building around. Just the fact that the build crafting system is that ridiculous in the first place is a really good thing to me. I'm, like, absolutely the type of person that will end up, like, throwing a build or a run just to do something that's really funny. Or just because it looks cool. Also, one thing I should mention is that I did talk about, like, how I have issues with a lot of my builds where they look or feel cool, but they just don't scale up and damage that well. And I would like to ask people not to spoil that type of thing too heavily for me. If you want to give some, like, basic advice, especially on the way, like, some of the game mechanics work, I'm okay with that, and, like, basic build crafting advice, but I don't want to be spoiled too badly on any of the, like, very strong builds or anything like that. But anyways, I'll see you guys after I reforge again. I honestly have no idea what I'm reforging into at this point, but we'll just kind of see what works. Okay, we are back again. I realized some other things that I had messed up with the build. I had Magic Bullet on here instead of Black Hole, and I wanted Black Hole on the better of the two wands. I also had Tranquil Bloom on this wand, even though it's a wand that always has 0 mana regen, so I was wasting space there. And then I rerolled into a Boundary Stone for movement, so this is another just autocast wand now. Then I also upgraded Precise Shot and switched this to now... This has mana regen here. This is more efficient than having the Magic Vine take up extra spaces, and then remember that magic regen goes into the energy conversion device. Where is the room transition? Okay, is there only one? Yeah, there must only be one here. But basically, everything is going to be coming from our, like, most of the damage is going to be coming from our top wand here. And then the others are just basically support or just there to look cool at this point. Which kind of tends to happen a lot in runs. Let's just go for more effect radius. Why not? If I can't see the screen, might as well make it where I can't see the screen even more. Also, it'll help stuff hit as well. Do I still have tracking somewhere? I might want to put tracking back on. I think I ended up re-rolling it at some point. Since I'm still learning the game, getting to, like, these really end point of builds becomes pretty intimidating when it comes to... Oh, wow. I don't know if I'll be able to get a... Well, we can try. If we can get this up to ++, it'll be extremely strong. And even if I don't, then just having the pluses on both slots is going to be a big help. But yeah, since I'm still, like, newer to the game, getting to these end points of managing your builds, it gets really intimidating for me. Especially since I'm also trying to do commentary on top of it, which is why I cut so often when it comes to, like, reforging rooms and stuff. I actually didn't realize that I had basically no money, so coming in here probably wasn't a very good idea. But I guess we can slap down Poison and Energy Saber on this. And then I might want to put this here. What did that do? Why did my slot... Oh, never mind. I forgot that gives an extra inventory space. Yeah, so there's really no reason not to put it on there. I don't know how much it's really helping with the tracking, but it's better than nothing. Especially since it gives me a free slot back, too. One of these suns does not look like the other, but now I can't even see it anymore. Holy... What is even going on? Well, like I said before, if the goal was to make a sun build, then I think I have definitely succeeded in that. You cannot look at this build if you want to be able to see anything. I can't even tell when the rooms have ended, because I can't see the ground at all. I don't even know what I'm interacting with. Now I have to try and play where is the portal to go to the next room, and what are the portals even? We basically have no money for the shop. Like I said before, obviously I can turn down the transparency settings, and that's what they're for. But I just think it's funnier not to. And if the run ends because of that reason, then I don't care. I think the room has ended, but I can't tell. Oh goodness, what have I created? I can't tell what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, I have to turn it down at least temporarily. I cannot tell where I'm supposed to go. Please let me see the game for just a minute. Ah, this game is so silly, and I love it. Again, I'm pretty sure the room is done. Yep, okay, I can barely see this over here. Prospector's Pickaxe does scale my damage, but I don't know how many coins I'll be able to get before the end. Ah, whatever. Extra damage is extra damage. I feel like the Clover might have been a better option there, but at this point, I don't care anymore. Whatever happens at this point of the build happens. I'm perfectly fine with just getting to the point of where I have this really stupid looking setup put together. Is it a good setup? That is that is up to interpretation. Is it a really funny setup? I think it definitely is. We have spells or coin. I wanted to go into the coin room, but I couldn't see where my character was, and I walked too far left, I think. The problems I have in this game are very serious problems, such as I can't see the screen or I have 0 FPS. At this point, I just want the coins for the damage scaling because I'm very overwhelmed with managing the build. Let's go into the we'll go into the spells. Even if I don't take or use these spells here, I'm still getting extra money occasionally from the relics, which will stack up to extra damage. I probably also missed a lot of these side rooms as well, just from not paying enough attention or not being able to see. But it is what it is. Oh yeah, let's try to do a puzzle without being able to see the puzzle. I wish that one thing I would recommend as like a huge quality of life thing that the devs could do, if possible, is either have a button to disable all wands, or just turn off wands in general when you go into puzzle rooms, or like any kind of side rooms, or honestly even like, it could also happen even when there are no enemies left in the rooms, just so you don't have this kind of issue where you have to constantly move around your wand slots if you want to see anything. And really, like, moving around wand slots isn't as big of an issue. If I was on mouse and keyboard, it'd be much quicker. But on controller, it's a little bit more of a hassle. Nothing really that big of a deal, just like a quality of life thing, if the dev ever happens to see this. So we can use magic upgrade. I think we just drop the remote casting. I don't think we care about it too much. What is going on? Oh, we lost a slot for doing that. So now it's just is just putting out pure black holes. I understand. Alright, so I went ahead and swapped out the remote casting for magic upgrade, which gives an upgrade to the black holes and twine. Actually, it'd be a much better idea to do it like this. So now the twine gets an upgrade and the dragon breath gets an upgrade. That's a much better way to do it. And we'll see how quickly the final boss goes down. Well, actually not final boss. I forget that there's another area sometimes. I would say this is kind of the final boss of, like, generally good builds. And then when it comes to, like, high difficulty settings, like Nightmare and up, the last area feels more like just a test of, is your build very high DPS, or is your build not? Which, like I said before, I think that's perfectly fine. What do I do with this one? I think we just put it on here, that way we have more slots to Vine Boost. This could also be a little funny. But I think we keep with the fire theme. Having extra random elemental effects would kind of ruin the fire theme a little bit, even though it would be very useful at this point. So that doesn't make a huge difference, but now thanks to the extra 2 slots here for Vine, it makes the entire wand better because of energy conversion rate again, and then we can slot in an extra Tranquil Bloom. Having the extra Tranquil Bloom there is more efficient than having an extra Vine slot or 2. Up until a certain point, probably, since Vine is percentage-based, and then these are flat. There's probably some kind of middle ground where one becomes better than the other. So I can try to reroll. My options here are to either reroll Arcane Nova and try to get a Spell Barrier. It's another epic effect that will block hits for you as long as the wand has mana. But if I do that, I also lose damage. So it's kind of a 50-50 chance. It'll make me safer and might let me win the run, but it will also reduce my damage because I have Prospectors to increase my damage per amount of coins I have. And like I said before, if the run ends at this point due to me just not being able to see what's going on, then that's just how the run is going to go. I'm not really too concerned with if the run wins or loses, as long as the run looks funny and interesting. That's going to be my mindset moving forward. That being said, this is definitely a run. It's definitely a winning run, as long as nothing too catastrophic happens. But it is definitely a run I could lose as well, just due to not being good at dodging things in this game yet, and due to not being able to see a lot of the projectiles as well. It's interesting, it seems like a lot of the projectiles will layer themselves over my projectiles, so I can still see them, but then some of them still do seem to get hidden. Do I need another Tranquil? I guess it's still worth it. We can just stick it on here. Otherwise, I probably won't be changing the wands anymore at this point. I'm just ready to get the run done with. I'm sure people that probably have more experience with the game are, like, very angry with me for missing something obvious, but that could improve the wand setup a lot, but that's fine with me. Gotta remember that the whole thing is like a learning process, and I'm still fairly new to the game, I would say. I don't know how many hours I have into it. It's probably quite a lot, but in terms of just knowing all of the interactions in the game, I could see taking like hundreds of hours to fully understand everything and just be able to know everything quickly. But that's something I look forward to with the game as well. It's definitely something I can spend a lot of my time on. Let's just go into the spring at this point. Need the extra HP. I don't want to have to look at anything else at this point. So with these two bosses, if it's possible to do, you want to try and kill them both at around the same time. Whichever one you don't kill first will go into a berserk phase if you give it enough time to. Obviously, on a build like this, I can't really control which one of them dies. And I also can't really control... I can't see the screen again. I can't even see the boss, barely. But anyways, even though I can't really control which one dies, it deals enough AoE damage that they both die in relatively the same time. This boss should theoretically go down pretty quickly, since he doesn't move nearly as much. But it just depends, I guess. One thing I also can't really tell is my movement speed feels like a little slow and clunky, and I can't... I think it's because of the frame rate dropping. Wait, is that a rank 3? I think it is. Though, honestly, putting a rank 3 might not even be... It probably isn't efficient compared to just having two separate ones. But yeah, I was saying I can't tell if my movement feels slow and weird because of frame rate issues or if something is giving me knockback. I don't think anything should be giving me knockback, though. That is something you have to be careful with on a lot of builds, especially when you're going for, like, autocast stuff like this, is that you can just, like, completely throw yourself around the screen with knockback if your builds are getting to a crazy point where they're casting very quickly or a lot at once. So Worm Nest Legion is one of the bosses that feels like he becomes very DPS check. I don't quite know how the mechanic works for sure, so that's one of those things where, like, if you guys want to share information with me, I'm more than happy to hear, like, gameplay mechanic stuff. It's just, for the most part, I don't want, like, broken builds spoiled. I want to figure that stuff out on my own. But anyways, you're not going to be able to see it here. You can't see anything here. But, he has, like, a berserk phase that applies to all of his summons, and it seems like when some of these summons are in that berserk phase, they just constantly get faster and faster movement speed. So I've had a lot of runs end just because of the fact that I'm not fast enough and can't kill them fast enough to outskill the point of where I can't outrun them anymore. They just stick on top of me, they deal constant damage, and I have lost the run because of that. I think I would say that's the boss that feels most like a DPS check to me. Whereas with these other bosses, they do get extremely tanky, but they are manageable in terms of dodging. But again, that might be something where maybe there's a mechanic I missed out. on that could deal with that movement speed issue, that's something I'd be more than happy if you guys let me know about. I don't want to jinx things, but I'm going to say with the amount of HP that we have, we should be pretty much fine with this boss fight, even if I'm tanking hits. It's not really killing him too quickly, but it's powerful enough to be decent DPS. I know compared to like really high-end builds, it's not good DPS, but just in terms of general gameplay, I don't think it's that bad. From what I've heard, the high-end builds start dealing like millions of DPS, which this isn't doing anywhere near that. Okay, I might have spoken too soon about being tanky enough to win the run, because this phase is going to be very tricky with low frame rate and not being able to see where my character is. I'm moving, but I don't know. Okay, there I can finally tell where I am. Like right there, I was moving, but I had no idea where my character was. Okay, we finished the run. Took about an hour and a half. Some of my Nightmare 3 runs were taking up to 2 hours, which again is something like, I'm sure I'll get down to the point of where I could do those runs faster in the future, but I'm not too worried about it at this point, or at least for now. Let's do a final DPS check and see. Yeah, you can see this room, I did 4 million, or 5 million DPS, and the total damage of the entire run was 16 or 17 million. So these final bosses are just really heavy DPS check increases. Or not necessarily DPS check increases, but they're just huge health pools compared to the rest of the run, which again I think is fine. Also, to no surprise, the majority of the damage came from the fire here. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.